All right, what's up, good people? This is your boy Justin Jamar with another episode of the Wrapped in Skin podcast. I can't thank you enough again for stopping in, checking us out, seeing what we're talking about. If you haven't watched the previous episodes, I say this all the time, you're missing out. Go back and watch those, particularly the last two episodes with Jael. So many gems, so much knowledge dropped in those episodes. She came through and gave me way more than I asked for, way more than I anticipated. And I think that will bless some of you. If you've been listening to me so far, you know that my goal is always to give you something to chew on, something to think about in a way that you may have not thought about it before. This is not necessarily a solution type of podcast, just to give you some things to think about and consider in your own time. Today, I get the pleasure of sitting down and talking to one of my lifelong friends, someone who's not only a friend of mine or someone I consider a brother. At this point, we'll talk about that background and what that looks like. But it is a pleasure to sit down and talk with my boy Rhoshod Browning. Rhoshod, welcome to the podcast. It's good to have you, man. Good to have you. How are you?
Hey, it's good to be here. It's blessed. It could be can be in several situations right now, but I'm blessed to be in the one I am right now.
That's right.
Spending time with you. So,
well, look, man, I'm not gonna. I could give you a long, lengthy introduction and tell people who you are. You know, most of the time we was talking about this before when we talk about when we introduce ourselves to people, like we lead with our career, right? We lead with what it is that we do, and that sometimes becomes like who we are to us, but also to other people. And there's so much that we can talk about as far as what you do, but who you are to me, obviously, as I said before, you're a lifelong friend, someone I've known since I was 19 years old. I won't tell people how long ago that was exactly, but it was a long time ago. And your father, your husband, you're a community man, you're a man of faith, but you also serve our country in a capacity that not many of us can even begin to fathom, like the amount of sacrifice and time, the energy and effort it goes into doing what you do for a career. So tell us about not only who you are, where you serve, what branch of the military you serve, what your rank is. And so that way I won't butcher your introduction, because in all the accolades, I know you're going to be modest and not tell us about all the achievements, but just give us a little bit of insight into your career and what it is that you currently do.
So first off, thank you for asking. When it's all said and done, I'm a selfless servant to those who I have an opportunity to serve for. I've been in the United States Marine Corps for some time at this point, joined back in 2002. I've been fortunate enough to go up through all the ranks on the enlisting side. I'm currently a sergeant major, which is an E9 pay grade. You don't go any higher. The thing that you do have an opportunity at that point is you have the responsibility of being able to take care of more people, which is what has kept me here. The relationships that, watching young men and women, grow throughout life. And then also staying involved in the community, also leaning on God, trying to ensure that I'm walking in the path that he wants me to. As you said, I got a, husband, got a senior in high school, and my daughter in college.
That's so crazy to me, man. As I'm dating myself, the fact that you got a daughter in college and a senior in high school is crazy. I joke about with all of my friends, but if you'd have asked us, probably if you even asked you when you first met me, like how long would it be before I had kids, you'd probably be like, I don't know, a few months. And here it is. I'm one of the only people in my group of friends who don't have kids, but so look, obviously I'm going to try my best to approach this conversation as if I don't know you, but again, we've been through a lot of stuff together. So I know you really well. But talk a little bit about, your background, where you're from, and kind of the early years, because you don't just, and let me just speak for myself, to make a decision at an early stage in your life that you want to dedicate your life to service, um, I don't think many people do that. They don't have the ability to say, for however many years, I'm going to dedicate myself to the service of others. Um, and I don't take that lightly, knowing what service means and how important it is to serve. I think a lot of people don't really understand the weight and the gravity that comes along with saying you're going to serve a higher cause outside of yourself. I'm sure your background, your formative years kind of shaped that. Can you tell us kind of where you got started? Did you always want to serve in the military when you were a kid? Is that something you aspired to do, or when did that kind of happen for you?
So no, I didn't always aspire to serve in the military. The thing that I gleaned from in the military is probably the same thing that all young men and women glean was the shiny things, watching planes fly, or the real excitement behind the military. But I never envisioned myself going into the military. Um, I was fortunate enough. I was raised by my mother, my grandmother. I knew of my father. It was one of those things. My mom always put me in sports, so always associated with the concept of team. Up to the point to where it came time for me to serve. I was at Murray State University. We were in college together when 9/11 happened, and when I had finished school and I was a store manager, I'd seen a Marine Corps recruiter one day, and I said to myself at that moment, um, what's 4 years going to hurt?
Hmm.
But what I didn't want to do was get to this point in my life and say, I wish I would have. And especially, as being an Omega, being someone who's grown up in the church, someone who was taught by my grandmother to make sure you give back, that it's not always about you. It was a good segue. It was an easy segue for me. Um, if you were to look at me and ask, if you didn't know me and you talked to me for 5 minutes and you asked what branch would I join, probably 99.9% of people say Marine Corps, which is
Of
the
course.
institution that I'm in right now. And then up to this point, 20 plus years in it, one would ask, like, how and why would you want to stay so long for the institution? For one, to give back to the country. And for two, that again, is something that I alluded to in the beginning, the relationships. To be able to shape and mold our country's brightest at this capacity, is an honor that I do not take lightly. Um,
Let's stay right there. I want to kind of stay right there for a second because you said something early on and you were raised by your mother and your grandmother, but you never really knew your father. Um, and I talk about this a lot. A lot of my friends, the majority of my friends, my really close friends, didn't have our fathers in our lives in the capacity that we would like to have them in our lives. Maybe they were in and out, or maybe they were there but not really available emotionally or mentally, or whatever have you. It wasn't the consistency of having that presence in your life. And I feel like as a result, young men go one of two ways. They either vow to never repeat that cycle, or they fall into the trap and repeat that cycle. So for you, being raised by your mother and your grandmother, and you've already said this, we're just now getting into the conversation, but you've already said a couple of times that what really draws you to the job that you have is the impact you can have on these young men. Do you think that not having your father in your life has something to do with kind of that mindset?
that's a good question. So 20, 30 years ago, I may have answered that total opposite of what I'm going to tell you right now. Um, you know, but I grew up in a gang infested neighborhood. It was either gangs, drugs, jail, or die.
Hmm.
Which unfortunately, even at this point in life, some of the communities that we have out there are still dealing with the same things. It has the needle has not moved far at all, if any. For me back then, the way I viewed my father, is not how I see him now. Even though he may have been absent, or what I would define as absent, he's actually taught me a lot in his absence. He's taught me what not to do within my kid's life. I choose to take that energy and harness it and use it in a way that I can control, because that other stuff I couldn't. And I would say yes, he has taught me a lot in his absence to shape me the way that I am in his absence because of his absence. Which is a lot of reason why I interact with the way that I do with my kids and all young men and women that I come across with, today is what I would say. 20,
Man,
20, 20, 30 years
go
ago, I'll
ahead.
probably answer that different.
You know, it's so interesting though that you say that, because again, this idea that sometimes you learn more from the absence of a parent or father than you do with the presence. Not to say that if he was there, you wouldn't have learned some things from him. Um, but again, this decision, I'm always intrigued by the decision making process where men go this way or they go that way. Now, I've kind of attributed, just in my own small experimentation talking to my friends, that one of the biggest differences is that if you have a mother who is upset at the father for not being present, noticeably upset, but also so upset that they take that anger out on the kid, then you're more likely to have a young man or a young woman who repeats that cycle versus having a mother who says, look, this is my situation. This is the situation that we're in, but not they don't project that anger and that frustration onto the child. Um, was that kind of your experience too, or did you have the opposite experience? Because it's hard. I try to imagine this all the time. A single mother raising kids. How do you not become angry, and how do you not, when you look at that child, have some sort of frustration when you think back to what that relationship was? So, did you have that experience with your mom? How did your relationship with your mom kind of shape?
My mother never spoke ill will of my dad,
Mm,
not once. My mother was one that was in the moment. She did what it is that she had to do in the moment. She was raising two young black men. At that time in Oklahoma City, it was we used to call it baby Compton or LA in the sense of how they call Chicago Chirac. It's a lot of us dying or getting arrested or drugs at that time. What my mother did not do is yield to what was going on around us, and yet tried her best as a mom and as a woman to raise us to be young black men, even though she may not have been the best equipped to do it. Um, so that's what I would contribute with my mother. At the same time, you're like, I was homeless after 10th grade.
yeah, you
Um,
jumping ahead. You know I was gonna hit that. But yeah, let's
uh,
get into it.
Homeless, 10th grade, high school. Up to that point, I had a pretty decent job, making $5.50 an hour, being a host, which was a lot of money back then.
Yeah.
Uh, Come home one day and the house is empty minus my room, which effectively made me homeless because a 15-year-old can't pay rent or bills um, in society unless you've vacated your parents. Um, so that's kind of in the same light with what you're asking about how I look at my dad with my mom leaving me homeless. With that reality being, it matured me to realize that people have to live. I don't fault my mother for that decision. That what took place made me the man that I am today. But it was a harsh reality at the time. Starting off in college, fresh, wanting the moral support and everything. But I
Well,
don't
let's
I don't
can
knock my mom.
we so Yeah, you said a lot right there in such a short period of time. It, what was the? Did you know the circumstances surrounding it at the time? I'm sure you know now better than maybe you did then, but I'm sure you were shocked when you got home. Was there any idea or thought that this could happen, that you might come home, and what led up to this?
No, there was no thought or idea to it. And keep in mind, at this point in time, I'm probably 16 years old. I had been paying rent since I was 13, 14. You know,
What do you mean? What do you
I
mean paying rent? You've been helping your mom out, or you've been paying the entire rent?
I was paying the rent. Now
Wow.
we're in housing assistance now, so in today's time we ain't talking that much money, $300-400. But when you talk about a 15, 16-year old giving up that amount of money, along with the electricity, along with the food that's going on the table, along with the clothes that's on your back, quickly you realize at a young age you're the man that you're not supposed to be. Um, so
Now let
going
me
into
ask you, Rashad. Let me ask you. Sorry to cut you off, but during that time, was this a decision that you made, that you just looked around and you said, look, I got to help out with the rent, or was it your mom came to you and said, you got to do this? How was that? How did it go get to the place where you're 13, 14, 15 years old paying rent?
So I was my mom's road dog, man. I was her battle buddy. We went everywhere together. As I as I would assume, especially in today in this society, as a man, we're taught to take care of our women. Um, we're taught to take care of our mothers. So back then, it wasn't even a thought. It was second nature. I wanted to be the kid who went to the NFL, who got the big contract, who put his mom in a big house to where she never had to worry again. I'm pretty sure a lot of kids grew up with the aspiration of wanting to do that. So when help was needed, it was never a question to give. Now, hindsight 2020, was the amount that I was given necessary, or should it have been required of someone at my age? No, across the board. You should
You know,
never
we,
put.
we we fall into that trap, man. You mentioned the NFL, and I feel like there's a lot of men and women who go on to be successful in typically sports and entertainment, and they flip the way, honestly, the money and wealth and wisdom and all that's supposed to flow down, right? When you flip that dynamic and all the finances and the wisdom and the insight is flowing up from the kids to the parents, then you've gotten some things out of order. And that sounds like that was even that mindset that we have, though, that we all want to get, so we can take care of our parents. And not to say you shouldn't take care of your parents, but that's not the way that thing is supposed to flow. It's not supposed to flow that way. Um, but yeah, that's it's amazing that you were able to step into that role, and even knowing that little bit, it starts to give me some clarity as to why you are the way you are uh, currently. You know, so you come in and you see everything's gone. Did you try to reach out to your mom? What was your reaction immediately when you saw you were by yourself?
I thought somebody broke in the house. I don't know why they would want what we got, but I thought
Right.
somebody broke in the house, man. Um, the surprise came in when I went to my bedroom and nothing was moved and everything was there. And slowly the reality sunk in that something drastic has happened, to where what you have is what you have, and what you thought you had to lean on is no longer there. Um, so back then, you know, you had to have a calling card or the same area code, and I'm dating myself, in order to call someone long distance. We still using payphones. Um, at the time, I didn't have my mother's number to call her. We in order to get access back then, we had pagers.
Yeah.
Um, so there was no one to effectively call in that moment.
Man, it's so crazy just to even think about that time, right? A time where if you didn't know where your mom was, you can't reach her, especially if she doesn't have a pager. Like you don't know. You have to have a landline. And if you don't know where she's at, you can't call a landline. There's no cell phone. I mean, even this idea, thinking about it right now, we sit to to have to get in contact with someone and have to know the number by heart and know exactly what location and whose house they were at in order to get in contact with them. That's crazy. How fast we've gotten to this point. Yeah. So you couldn't get in contact with her. No pager, no cell phone. What'd you do?
What most men do. Uh, Tried to figure it out. Reached out to those who I could. It's roughly I still had 2 months of rent that was still there, so I had about 2 weeks to figure out what it is I was going to do. At that time, my girlfriend's mother also lived in the same apartment complex. I asked her if she could do the administrative portion for me to get an apartment, and I would pay for it, which she did that. I'm already paying rent. I'm everything's already being taken care of financially by me. So she was able to get a contract for me so I could get another apartment to live in.
So she co-signed you for an apartment in that same apartment complex.
Brother, I don't even know if she co-signed me. I think she put her name on it and I paid for it.
Huh. Wow.
Because
And you're 16.
you can't co-sign for a 15 or 16-year-old.
Right. You're 15 or 16 at the time. So what grade in high school were you? 10th grade?
10th going into 11th.
Now, did you continue to go to school or what happened?
So at that time, again, as I said earlier, between drugs, gangs, people being killed or going to jail, either that or find a way to get out away from that. And I was fortunate enough to be talented enough. I played the violin and I ran track and I played football, which was my way out. And fortunate enough that came to fruition to where the college was enough to pay for my degree.
How long were you homeless?
From that moment on, even you have to think about it, even throughout college. Come fall break, Christmas break, look, I have nowhere to go but my car that I came to college with.
So let me I just want to make sure I get the timeline right. So your girlfriend's mom, whatever she needed to do to get you into an apartment, did you stay in that apartment through high school or okay, so you
Yeah.
stayed in that apartment paying bills. So you had a place, but you were on your own essentially.
So yes. Uh, to clarify, came home, no one there, got to figure it out. I was able to get into another apartment as a 15, 16-year-old that I was paying for. Um, yes. So the true homelessness part would probably come in when I went to college
Got
because
it. Okay.
it was either the dorm that I was living in, but you can't stay in the dorms when you go on these breaks, and I have nothing to go back to because I brought everything with me to go to college. So, if you're gonna say like truly homeless, that's probably when it really hit because the resources didn't matter at that time because I couldn't quickly fall in on nothing, and it was what it was at that point.
Hmm. Man, it's so crazy that you were able to at that time continue to go to school, play two sports, and make good enough grades where you could get scholarship offers. And so the scholarship offers, did they start coming in? Were they already coming in around the time that your mom left? Or was it later on in the next couple of years where you started to really excel in football track?
So I had always excelled in sports. My freshman year in junior high, I got pulled up to the high school to run track, and I ended up getting third in state, 6A, which is the highest level across whatever state you look at.
Hmm.
So pretty talented. When it came to football, I'd say my sophomore year, the letters were already coming in, and in the junior year they really hit. And going into my senior year, we talking about boxes. You pick the top 30 schools like I had an opportunity to go to all of them. So they were coming in consistently as I was going through all my hardships, trying to get out of the dire situation that I was pretty much in.
And still no contact with your mom through this time.
No.
Wow, man. That's crazy. Again, there are kids who have both parents at home and still have trouble with school, focusing, concentrating. Um, to me, I mean, it says a whole lot about you personally, but to me, it says more so about your purpose in life. Like you don't do that without a guiding force that is unseen, that is guiding you, looking over your life, particularly when you are essentially on your own, able to do whatever you want to do. That could be girls, that could be drugs, that could be violence, that could be whatever. All accessible to you with no one there to tell you not to do it. Just something inside. What is it that kept you on a straight and narrow? And what, because again, I lost my mom at 14. And I can only imagine. Now I was angry. I lost my mom with there was nothing I could do to control that situation. I was mad with God for quite some time. But as I look back on those years from 14 to 18, if I didn't have a grandmother who prayed and who was there that I lived with for a while, aunts, brother, people who could wrap their arms around me and keep me on the straight and narrow, there's no telling where I would have ended up. So to imagine myself in your situation with none of those parameters in place, none of those people in place, what do you think it was that kept you straight, man?
There was a few things. The greatest power was God. You know, my through the life lessons that my grandmother taught me up to that point, in a sense of hard work and expectations of self. You know, of what it how we all affect each other in a sense, especially being a
Mm.
black man in society, in an American society. It was survival. The reality was is that if I did not execute the path that I went, my belief was is that I wouldn't be here today. I I remember somebody asked me. I was 16, and someone asked me, what are you gonna do when you turn 18? And it scared the crap out of me because I couldn't envision living to be that old. I couldn't even imagine it. Like when it shook me to my core. So when I tell you my reality is either I find a way to get out of that situation, or I don't exist. Um, we we all know it's human nature to fight to survive, which is ultimately what I did.
Man, that's a calling on your life, man. I told you this before, but um, if and this is just me talking to you, if there's ever a time that you think, man, there's nothing that I'm here designed to do, which I don't believe that you will get to that, you ever gotten to that point. Maybe you have, but that you will get to that point at this stage in your life. But if you do, man, just remember that time there was nothing but God. There's this poem called "Footsteps in the Sand," or essentially, there's two sets of footprints, and God saying, I've been walking beside you, and then at a certain points in the life, there's only one set of footprints, and the guy says to God, "What happened during this time? Like you weren't with me. There's only one set of footprints," and God says to him, "Those are the times that I carried you."
Mm.
And for me personally, in my life, I know that those years God was carrying me because I could not have done it on my own power, under my own will and authority. And I would say the same for you, man. It's just amazing to hear that story again, knowing where you are and how you interact with your family, your kids, to come from that to get to where you are now in your relationships is just incredible. It's a testament to you, but also a testament again to the purpose that is on your life. Now you get to college, and now did you meet we talked about this. I know this. Again, I'm trying to act as if I don't know a lot of this information. And some of that stuff that you just said, I didn't know all the details, to be honest. But did you meet your wife? Did you know your wife prior to college, or did you meet her in college? What was that process like once you got to college? And because you met her pretty early, right?
So I did not know her prior to college. So I get my scholarship. I go to Northeastern Oklahoma A&M, and I was fortunate enough to know two gentlemen, Jaquay Thomas and Edric Brooks. Jaquay Thomas ended up playing for the Philadelphia Eagles. Uh, Edric Brooks was just as talented. He ended up having a knee injury. He ended up graduating from Baylor University and went into the Army. So considering fall break is coming up and I have nowhere to go, like I got my Cutlass, my 81 Cutlass Supreme that I bought when I was 14.
Yeah.
They asked me, what are you doing for the break? And it's, hey, I'm gonna go stand in my car. And good on
Now,
them.
were you telling people that? Because
No.
that's okay. So you weren't telling. I was gonna say that's a lot. Most people hide that stuff. So
And to put it into context, at this point in most of those young men's life, everyone has some discontent going on within their life that they're fighting to get where it is that they aspire to be. So when you're in that environment, you can have your situation, but you can probably find 10 people the situation is way worse than yours.
absolutely.
So and I truly felt like that in the moment. So that was one of those things that I kept to myself, and it was just time for me to do what I needed to do and grind. But when
Man,
that kid,
look, and I'm sorry to keep cutting you off, but there's so much that you're saying, man. We can kind of get into this rut of self pity, and that is not the place where you want to be. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't feel bad about your circumstance or your situation, but the place of self pity is not an easy place to get out of. I feel like once you fall down, it's a spiral, right? You can really start to spiral into this place that is dark that you can't get out of when you fall into the trap of self pity. And so, what kept you from that, and what I talk about all the time, is this place of gratitude. So, I don't have a lot, but I've got something, and I know there's people in just as equally as bad and sometimes worse circumstances. And that keeps you out of this place of self pity, and it keeps you above drowning level, essentially. So I just kind of wanted to point that out because I think that's something I didn't want to gloss over. The fact that you had the wherewithal to know, look, my circumstances are bad, but there are people who have it just as bad, if not worse, than me.
yeah, that my reality of that, and the way my grandmother always taught me, that is a waste of time. She put me in a space of control what you can control. There's a lot of things that people are going to say about you that they don't dictate, you do. So it don't matter what they say. You can control that. And that's what I chose to do. Me sitting there feeling sorry for myself was not gonna put me in a situation to where I was gonna have a loving home and family to go home to if everything came to an end. That was something that
Mm.
I was gonna have to create and foster from that point going forward with the reality that I had, being being a man in society. So yeah.
So you're telling your friends that they're asking you what you're going to do for the summer. I guess what were they going to do? What were their plans?
So that fall break, they were so they're from Houston. They're from Houston, Texas. They went to high school together, and they knew of a family, Don and Mary Schaefer. They went to school with their kids, Ben and Matt, who also went to the same high school as Keeley. So at this
Keely, for
point,
people who don't know, Keely's your wife. For people who don't
yep,
know.
Keeley's my wife, my better half. At this point, I'm a freshman in college. Again, fall break is coming up for the first time. I had broke up with my high school. Well, my high school sweetheart had broken up with me that I'd known since elementary school. And I'm really not interested in dating or anything. I'm focusing on, playing football and trying to give my best myself the best chance that I can moving forward. And they being Edric, Jaquay, Matt, and Ben caught on to my personality, and they all kind of said, we know somebody that would be good for you, but I wasn't interested. Which is how I got introduced to my wife. It was one of those, the Schaefer's was going to the movies. I went to her job, asked her if she would come out on a date when we still used to court young ladies and everything. Asked her if she would have come.
Now you talking about dating yourself? Using that word, you dated yourself right there, brother.
Hey, Oklahoma, man. Hey,
court,
gentlemen. Right. So took her out. We dated. She in the conversations that we had over time, kind of a little bit like even with you and I talking right now, she was able to look behind the curtain. I probably felt sorry for me and my circumstances to an extent, even though that's not what I was asking for. And we ended up dating within a year. By 97, within a year of me graduating high school.
And look, man, you got to quit giving these actually specific dates, man. Not only you dating yourself, but you're dating me when you do this. So you gotta chill out on the specific dates.
Hey, but we started dating and got serious enough to where I asked for her hand. Well, I went to her father and her parents to ask if I could ask for her hand in marriage, and her mom asked me to wait because they thought it was a little quick. They wanted us to graduate college first, respectfully.
Now, how long had you known her at this point?
About a year and a half.
And so she wasn't going to the same school you were going to?
No, sir.
She was in a different college. So y'all were doing long distance?
She's in college in Houston. We was doing long distance.
Okay. And so how'd that go when you asked her father?
They initially she didn't know I was going to ask him. It's kind of weird in a sense, my mother's also from Houston, Texas. My mother's family is also from Houston, Texas. When I asked the question, her mother like beamed and really looked me in my eyes, and she's like, something's off, and she started downloading me about my mother's family. Where'd they go to high school at? Where do they live at? And trying to get information, because the first time that she ever seen me, she made a comment. She's like, "You two look like bookends. You two look." And yeah, as you know, we favor each other. So once she started asking those questions, she paused and she say, I need y'all to hit time out for a moment. I didn't know what she was doing. She goes back and she talks to all the elders and all the family. She talked to my mom's side of the family. She talked to my mom to make sure there was no cross-contamination. And then, after that, I got my mother-in-law, my father-in-law's blessings to ask her hand in marriage. And then we went from there.
Wow. Yeah. Y'all do look alike. So, and then I'm from a small town too. I'm from a small town. So literally every time we were interested in a girl, I had to go to my grandmother and say, and she'd be like, down the line,
we ain't trying to have those family secrets.
Exactly. So and I'm from Kentucky, so let the jokes fly. But so you're in two separate colleges, but you're engaged. What was the thought process? Like, when were you going to get married? Was she going to transfer? What was the thought process of how you going to make this work?
Well, let me back up. Before we even got into that point, I am a college athlete, and I had several things going on. I had just prior to starting to date my now wife, I went through what I would describe as a nasty breakup with my high school sweetheart. Mm-hmm. I say it's nasty in a sense because how how I got introduced to This Might Go South was I remember my freshman year, all the upperclassmen was asking who came here with a girlfriend. You know, I got my hand raised up high to the sky. Who think they gonna stay with their girlfriend? You know, I got my hand even higher, and they all start to laugh. And I, you know, never thought it would be me. You know, we was good before I left. 6 months into my freshman year, you know, and good on her. I'm happy she found the man that she's happy with. She's had some kids with him. They still married. So I am of the belief she found the right man, but it still hurt that it wasn't me at the time.
Yeah.
So going into meeting Keely, like I didn't want no parts of that. And to put it even in context, my 4 girlfriends before that, they all broke up with me on Valentine's Day after I bought each one of them something.
Oh man.
You talk about being scarred. It took me years to start buying Keely stuff for Valentine's Day because I was just so angst about it.
Well,
But
let me say something. Let me say something about you right here. Look, the fact that that happened to you tells me that you can get over heartbreak, because to go through those situations, I know it was puppy love, it was young love, but still, you go through those situations, those breakups, and then you meet a girl, and you in your mind like, this is the one, I'm ready in a year and a half. Most We talk about a lot about being jaded from the woman's perspective, but men can be jaded too. Uh, and so to be able to overcome that and realize, listen, I still have the capacity to love. I still have the ability to be interested in somebody, even though I've gone through these quote unquote heartbreaks as a kid. Because I ain't have it. I didn't really have any girlfriends, right, until college. So I didn't have to deal with the heartbreaks going into that. So kudos to you for being able to get over that,
so
because I don't think we get ourselves a lot of credit as men to be able to also get over heartbreaks.
so you say overcome it. I would
Yeah.
argue that I approach cautiously with an understanding of knowing potentially where it could go.
Hmm.
I,
Explain that.
I have just always been one of those type people that I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt until you show me otherwise.
Got it. Got it.
Which
I'm the opposite.
means I I, I may put myself in a compromising situation. I'm not gonna open myself up so much that you hurt me to the point to where I can't come back. But I'm cognizant and aware that is possible. I've never believed in the soulmate. I've never believed that it's just one person in the universe for you. I believe that you're compatible with certain people and there's certain attributes between the two of you and sacrifice that allows you to move forward. Um, and just based off of seeing her parents, her family, how she was at that point, I was willing to give it one more chance uh, before I threw my hat in for a sustained amount of time.
Got it. Okay. But you did it. You pulled the trigger on it. But you said you had a conversation previously. Or did you have a conversation with her about what this was going to look like from a college standpoint before that? Because I'm really interested to see how that all happened and took shape. When you're both in college at different colleges, but this is the one you want to be with. It seems to me that somebody's gonna have to make a tough decision.
And that's the reality of it. When it comes to a relationship, a marriage, or anything, there's sacrifices. There's going to be sacrifices on both sides that may be unknown at the moment. So my reality is one of the greatest things that I appreciated about her was her sense of loyalty.
Mm,
She's a very beautiful woman, but it wasn't about the looks for me. It wasn't about how she carried herself. It's that she had the capacity to be loyal, um, and that meant a lot for me. That gave me peace of mind in the sense of what I for had a thought that I would be moving in when it came to in the future. I thought I was going to be a certain place, and she just made sense to be there with me. So when I asked
let me
her,
let me say this, Rich, and I hate that I keep stopping you, man. But every time you say something, this sparks. When you say that, the first thing I think back to when you bring up loyalty, because oftentimes these things that we want out of women, they come from a place, right? There's a reason that we look for these things. Some of it is because that's what our purpose is connected to what they have intangibly. But could it possibly be that, I mean, look, you had been abandoned by people in your life, people who were close to you had abandoned you. And so, we're not talking about girlfriends. We're talking about the first woman that you probably loved, the first woman who loved you had exited your life pretty haphazardly, right? And so it makes sense that now you got this other woman that you're in love with, that you want to spend the rest of your life with, but you got to make sure she ain't going to abandon you. And that loyalty, I just don't, when people are rationalizing why they look for certain things, you typically don't have to look any further than yourself and your own experiences to see why it is. Now, if something that you're looking for doesn't serve you, maybe you need to go and heal from that and fix that. But I think it's no coincidence that loyalty is the first thing you said that stood out to you about her based on kind of what you've been through in your past. Is that an accurate statement, you think?
Yeah, I think that's fair. Um, One would probably say you probably need therapy to come to that conclusion, but I think that's a fair assessment. Um, up to that point in my life, the number one woman in my life abandoned me. My father, my number one father figure, abandoned. At the capacity of my grandmother stepped up, which so many of them were doing back then that shouldn't had to.
Absolutely.
She was my center to give me a good compass of what right looks like. So, but to even go beyond that, I think internally, a majority of men, a majority of men would want to find peace in the idea and thought that their lady is loyal.
I don't disagree with that. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. It may not be first on the totem pole, but yeah, I think that should be part of it. Both men and women. I think loyalty is key. Loyalty, respect, those things kind of go hand in hand. But so look, we could talk for hours. I want to make sure I get to some of the places that I want to get to. So how did you end up? Can you fast track it? How did you end up at Murray State when we met? And then just go ahead and talk about how you got into the Marine Corps. You're going to fast track that process. But both of you ended up at Murray State. How did that happen that both of you ended up at Murray State?
Okay, that happened because so my mother-in-law didn't want us to move too fast. So when we held up and we took the allotted amount of time to make her comfortable until we can get married. Once we got married, it just made sense. Well, at that point, she was my responsibility, and in order wherever I was is where our house was at, for the two of us, which brought us to Murray State University. Uh, what brought us both into to the Marine Corps? So Keely always wanted to be in the Navy, but her mother was not comfortable with that with her going into the Navy. Being on a ship deployed all the time. It as a mom, I could see how that could be disheartening in a sense. Now she's an adult, and at the time, I'm a store manager at Dick's or Hibbett Sporting Good down in Paris, Tennessee. Opening up a store one day, and I look across the street and I see a recruiter, and I say, "What's 4 years going to hurt? Maybe I get to travel the world and see some things." 22 years later, been around the globe around 12 times. I can't count on my hands how many deployments. And the unique thing about that is, yes, we both came into the Marine Corps together. So, which inherently made us a military family out the gate. So,
Now,
kudos. Go ahead.
now you think do you think she would have eventually gone into the military? Was she leaning that way prior to you, or was it something that you said, "Baby, we this is what I'm doing," and she said, "If you're doing it, I'm doing it." How did that conversation go when you came home and told her, "I think I want to join the Marine Corps"?
I think it's the latter of what you said. I didn't know she wanted to join. The recruiter
Okay.
was telling me she was going to join, but I was telling him, "Hey, my wife passive. I know these numbers count for you. She's going to tell you what you need to hear, but I don't foresee her doing it." on her side, I think she thought that I was she wasn't going to give me the time and space to be able to separate myself from her. So in order to do that, she's going to bump herself right up. If you in the military, we both in the military.
We're a package deal.
It's a package deal. So I
Wow.
think that's how it went.
Man, that says so much, not only about her ability to be flexible in that, and this goes back to picking a partner. Like a lot of men want to lead, but they haven't instilled confidence in women enough to follow them. Right now, you like the idea of leadership, but what is it about your character that gives a woman confidence enough to follow you? And some men are asking women to just follow them down the street. Right. You asked your woman to follow you into the Marines, and she did it. And I've talked to her, I know her, and it seems like she did it without much of a doubt. And maybe she had doubt about the military, but she didn't have any doubts about you. And I think that says a lot about your ability to instill confidence in her that you're not going to lead her off a cliff. Like if you made a decision to do it, that it's the right decision, or at least it's the right decision for you and your family. So, fast forward, you've done all these tours. What I really want to touch on at this point, even though both of you are in the military, obviously deployments are different. Then you have kids. How in the world? It's tough to maintain a relationship in general, but to maintain a relationship when you've got distance, when you've got kids, and I'm not talking about down the street, different countries at different times, at the drop of a hat, you could be gone. What type of commitment and communication do you have to have as a couple to get through those times? And were there tough times?
Were there tough times? Yes, several tough times. I came back from a combat deployment from Afghanistan, and one of the first things that Keely did is she told me she wanted to take me somewhere. She wanted to take me out, and that date that we went on was a class to divorce 101 is what it said when I walked into the classroom. Divorce
Oh,
101.
wow.
Fresh off of a combat deployment, which is a gut check. For all intents and purposes, I'm still not back yet.
Mm-mm.
Uh, and to run into that is a hell of a reality check. But in a sense of time and space, it draws you in and lets you realize where someone's head is at the moment. And considering we had the union that we have, it was a respectful moment. That let me know most definitely she had some things on her mind or some things she was putting up with that she wasn't happy or satisfied with. And as of now, I want to say divorce probably came up 3 times on her end and probably 2 times on mine. What I think is put us in a situation to where we're still in right now is that upper echelon of communication. Brutal honesty. I understand often when I tell my wife truly what's going on with me, that it's going to hurt her. And often when she shared things with me, so it hurts me. But the reality that we both came to a long time ago in a sense of happiness through communication is that we're of the opinion, or I'm of the opinion, I'm not responsible for her happiness and she's not responsible for mine. I have to do the things to make myself happy through how I'm guided, through how God gives me my path.
Dog, you said that to me several times before. I want you to repeat it again for the people listening. But you said that to me several times before, and I think you and I have gone back and forth about this before. But I've gotten to the place where I agree with you. So can you say that again about happiness?
I am not responsible for her happiness, and nor is she responsible for mine. You have to control what you can control. you are the general manager of your game. You allow or not allow people to control to affect your emotions or how you move on a daily basis. For my wife, when she tells me something that that hurts me like to my core, I appreciate that moment in the sense, for one, she shared it with me when she didn't have to. And then at this point in life, we understand it's a difference from listening and hearing. And to me, what's important at that point, once I hear it, is my actions that carry after that, which may be an action of sacrifice, because it might not be for me. But in the sense of when we move forward on a daily basis and we're going through stuff, that's where, like, I used to not understand when people say you want to be evenly yoked, and I don't think you're ever going to be like ever equally like. I think it moves, but as long as you're trying to move in the same direction, on the same accord, understanding nothing's perfect, it's still going to be difficult. And you take responsibility of your side of it, in the sense of, I do things in life that make me happy, man. It feels good for me to go to Fifth and Saks and buy something for my wife and bring it back to her and see the enjoyment on her face, or be gone for a sustained amount of time and come home and see the house get excited. I know there's things for my wife that I can do that makes her happy, but the more important part is the things that she do for herself that makes her happy. Because in the absence of what I don't do, she should be able to stand on her own, in the sense of, no one knows it like you.
That's this idea of, I think we wrestle with this concept of, do two people, once you get together with someone who is for you, does that make a whole union? And what I believe is that you have to be whole on your own before you get together with someone. No one can make you whole.
Brother,
And
I cannot love you to the core if I don't love myself.
100%. And brokenness plus brokenness equals more brokenness. If you got two broken people, you're going to end up with more brokenness. But I think that, again, this says a lot about you, and also this idea of servitude, like being able to look at yourself as a servant first, is crucial to relationships, because you've said that several times. Like, to come off of deployment, and obviously we're not going to go into details about deployment, but you've seen some stuff, you've done some stuff, like those things happen. And to come back and get hit with that, it would be easy for a man to go into a shell and be like, I've been out here fighting for our country, and you're going to hit me with this as soon as I get home. But to be able to, even though you may have been caught off guard, to be able to take a minute and think, oh, this is her perspective, because she may not be there physically fighting with me, but she's taking care of the house, she's taking care of the kids, so she's in this battle with me, even though she may not be physically there. But to be able to have that shift in perspective at that moment, when you could have felt attacked, you could have went into self-pity, you could have said, how dare you hit me with this as soon as I get home. But to not be able to do that, I think, is something that should not be taken lightly. And a lot of men can kind of learn from that, because it's hard, man. I can't imagine being in that situation and then having to humble myself enough to see someone else's perspective. And so kudos to you, man, for being able to do that. I said something on the last episode, talking about samurais, and I was talking about how when samurais go to war, they come back and then they stand at their doorstep, and their wife takes their armor off, cleans them, treats their wounds, feeds them. And basically, it was the first time that they could be vulnerable with anybody, from the however long they've been at war, or in your case, deployed. But when you also have a wife who's dealing with her own things at home, you have to also be able to take care of her. How did you do that? How did you manage to get home from deployment? Did you have an expectation she was going to take care of you? but how did you switch and be able to take care of her as well? What was that process like?
Did I have an expectation for her to take care of me?
Yeah.
No, that's something I've always put on myself, in a sense of, again, it goes back to the same comment. Yes, I may do things that make you happy on a daily basis, but you have to take some accountability of your happiness. I had to come back and look in the mirror and say, whatever it is that I've dealt with up to this point, hey, am I going to let it rule me and decide my future actions? Or am I going to control and be diligent on how I move forward? I chose to control what I can control and move diligently, and not waste time and space on things, or what I identify as wasted emotions, to put me in situations that I wanted to be with, be in. So, in a sense of coming back, taking care of my lady, my wife, it's like, yeah, that's what a man does. Um, Up to this point, I have a picture of, to in my head, of what right looks like. Especially be gone for a sustained amount of time, and making one feel appreciated for what was done in my absence. So it's easy in the point when I get back, and then the way my head worked, I always sacrifice myself for others. But again, in a marriage, I come to the understanding a long time ago, that's work. Like, that's not all flowers and bubble baths and peaching, and like that. That's work. Some things I have to put myself on the back burner for, in order to have a healthy relationship. And at that
No,
point,
that's what they show you on social media, so you can like it when they hashtag relationship goals. They show you all the stuff, that all the fluff, but not the real work that goes into it.
yeah, yeah, it took a lot to get to that point. Um, and then, it's just times coming off of that, because, shoot, like I said, I can't count how many deployments I've been on. I'd really have to think in depth how many times I've been gone away from my home for a sustained amount of time, but have an appreciation to when I come back home, I still have one.
Man, what I know you said this earlier, that the yearning or the urge to serve has you still in it, but given the difficulty that comes along with being, not only in the military, but a high ranking official in the military, and having all those deployments and seeing all the things that you've seen, what keeps you motivated? I mean, we've talked about this several times. I mean, we've been kind of urging you to retire. Like, man, it's time to get out of here. Um, and I'm prayerful that you're close to that point. But what is it that keeps you motivated to continue to do what you do, um, the way that you do it?
Justin, if not me, who?
Hmm.
You know, we 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 are represented in society. We have been represented in our society throughout our lives as Black men as something that we find foreign. You know, we're not lazy. We're intelligent, not based off of having collegiate degrees or anything. We have taken the time to research and form our own opinions through information that's provided from several resources that are out there, that's accessible to everyone. We don't we don't yield to the idea of what a Black man is in American society. We have blazed our own path and made this thing what we want it to be, not only because we want it to be it, but it's because it's what it is. Uh, a lot of what I was taught and seen growing up, I've come to realize is not the reality of who we are. And then what I choose to do in that is not to allow the whole system make me a victim or say that I'm less than, but yet the latter, I'm gonna write this book the way I want to write it. To be able to get the I cannot go any higher in the ranks that I'm in the military. I have reached the top. And to be afforded the opportunity to have young men and women come up in the institution to where off of my guidance based off my experience that may affect them just a little bit, just a little bit. The same extent that I may be able to influence my kids. Uh, I try not to treat my fellow service members like my kids, but they often come off like I see them developing and growing, um, which is a part what keeps me around. When you can influence someone, not motivate, influence. Motivation is fleeting. It's momentary. It's in the moment. The second you're gone, that motivation can leave you. Influencing someone, when you put something in someone that's sustained throughout their life, and you have the opportunity to do that on a daily basis through genuine interactions, it's beyond me. Again, I'm not moving how I want to. I'm moving how I'm asking God to have me move.
And that's true
So
leadership, dog. I honestly believe that there's this thing that I say in the leadership development courses I teach, that managers and bosses crave obedience. Leaders crave responsibility. And that difference between being a true leader, you behave in a way that encourages people to mirror that behavior. It's not motivation, it's inspiration. Right? If he's doing it this way, then I can do it that way. Or I want to get to that phase in my life, in my career, in my relationships. I just need to model my behavior. We talk about, you know, the concept of Jesus Christ and his teachings. Like, there's people who read the teachings, and there are people who gravitate towards it for whatever reason, because they want the authority, or they want the power, or they want the control. But there are other people who say, how do I live my life? Let me just mirror this man's life and do it to the best of my ability. And then hopefully there'll be people that come behind me that will do the same thing. And your life, man, really crystallizes that. For me, like I said, I've been around you since I was 19 years old, and continue to learn things from you and about you every day. So I appreciate you. And, oftentimes we end up in these conversations where we're talking. I say this all the time. Men have these conversations. You and I have had these conversations, for a long time. But oftentimes we have them in private, because it's not something that we feel like we can get clicks and likes. And, if you look at this podcast, it's a very small community of people who listen consistently. And I like it that way, because I'm not trying to get clicks and all that. I'm really trying to give some insight and wisdom. So when we have these conversations as men, to be able to put them out for people to consume is priceless to me, man, especially to have someone of your caliber as a man who can drop some jewels and some wisdom. That being said, if you had to leave us with three things that you would say, what does it mean to be a man? I'm gonna give you four. What does it mean to be a man? Um, and how do you make that be as successful as possible? How do you be successful in your manhood journey? Um, Not just going through the motions, but how do you become a successful, productive husband, father, community member, etc.? Four things, if you could.
let's see, four things. You're gonna challenge me on the way out, huh? Four
Yeah,
things.
I got to.
So
I didn't pick that. I didn't pick that number by accident either. You know
not by
that.
not by accident. I got you. Let's see, four things. One I say is be selfless. Realize there's a lot of things happening around you that's not solely based off what it is that you're doing, nor should it all be about you. I'm a believer of what you give, in a sense, for good reasons, come back to you tenfold, in a sense of being genuine. So the first thing I would say is be selfless. Number two, I would say is know where it is that you're trying to go and how it is that you want to get there. Um, sometimes our goals are in a stream of consciousness. It's just blah. It's just a whole bunch of stuff coming. I would say be specific in nature. Understand what short term, medium term, long term goals are. I would define short term as a year to 2 years. Medium
Mm-hmm.
term, 3 to 5 years. Long term, 5 to 10 years. Write it down on a piece of paper. Understand that it might not go exactly the way that you're trying to have it go, but at least if you can go back and look at it, you can hold yourself accountable to what it is that you're trying to attain. The third thing I would say is get out of your way. We cripple ourselves more than anything else in this world, whether it's self expectations or self doubt, whatever it is. I'd say if you're gonna do it 110%. If you mess up, give yourself the room to mess up. Some of your best life lessons will come from your mistakes if you actually learn from it. But get out of your own way. You can always make an excuse why not to do what it is that you aspire to do, compared to finding 3 or 4 reasons why to do or how to do what it is that you aspire to do.
That's it.
So I'd say get out of your own way. Lastly, I would say love yourself. Love yourself.
Yes, sir.
Um, we have been made in the liking of God. I believe God wants us to have heaven on earth. That's my belief. I believe He wants for us to enjoy our time here. What the reality being is we don't realize how short that time is,
Mm-hmm.
or how short that it can be. Um, but the thing is you can care about everything out there that's in front of us as people, whether it's money or things or whatever. But if you don't love and care about yourself, um, none of that stuff in front of what I just said is going to matter.
Man, wow. I love that, man. Every one of those. I rock with every one of those. So it's so refreshing again to have these conversations and to hear someone who is who's in line with what God is having them do, and it's hearing from God, like consistently having a communion and a dialogue with God, and allowing God to guide His steps. So, my brother, I love you, man. I tell you that all the time. I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me and have this conversation. Like I said, we have these all the time, man. It's nothing new for us, but I do think it's important that we start to uncover some of these conversations that men have. And if you're a man out there who listens to this and you don't have another man that you can talk to and lean on and go to for insight and wisdom, preferably someone who is in one area or another of their life where you want to get to, whether that's in relationships, whether that's in career, whether that's in their faith, in their health, even wherever it is, you got to find people. A friend of mine told me this the other day, and I'm gonna steal his thunder. But Vic, if you listen to this, I'm gonna give you credit. Victor Haley told me that he tells people about the 5 B's, is what he calls them. He says, first is belief, second is brain, three is body, 4 is bond, meaning your relationships, and then 5 is business. And those areas, if you don't have someone that you can lean on in those areas to help you become a better person, then you should find those people who are helping to secure and sustain you in some of those areas, man. So, Rhoshod, man, I appreciate you. And Yeah, man. We'll talk again soon, I'm sure.
Hey, twofolds, man, on my end. If you need something from me, man, I love you. Keep doing what you're doing. This thing gonna blow up. I look forward to seeing the day that you got your 100,000 little plaque in the back, and then your million in the. Hey, just remember, I was a day one.
Oh yeah. Oh, you already know. You already know. All
All
right,
right,
my man. We'll talk to you soon.
all right. Take care, brother.
Roots to the bros.
Root, root.